Clear TV, and I've got Eric Baldwin here in the studio. Thanks so much for coming.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
He recently won a $1,500 buy-in No Limit Hold'em tournament. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Now, we caught up with you at the bracelet ceremony. We got to talk a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit deeper about your run for your bracelet. So let's first talk about your day one. How did that go?
Day one was nice and uneventful. I like it when I can chip up without any big hands or ever having my tournament life at risk. I did play one big pot against Phil Hellmuth where I flopped top set of jacks and he had the nut flush draw. He check called, and then on the turn he made the nut flush. He check min raised me, and I just called.
When he min raised you, did you think he had it? But you had to call to see if you could pair the board?
Yeah, exactly. With the min raise, I was getting a great price on my money, and there was no way I could fold. So, and I felt like he may have had an underset, but probably not. I felt like I was beat to either a straight or a flush, but I had to call. Then the river paired the board. He bet like 4,000, and I only had like 2,000 behind that. So I moved all in, and he was forced to call, and then the fireworks started, and it was pretty entertaining.
Did he call you a donkey or anything like that?
Not too bad. He was more cursing the deck for pairing the 8 on the river and cursing his bad luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so funny when I see him on TV. He's like, I've been setting him up all day.
Yeah. Yeah. If I'd re-raised all in on the turn and then got there on the river, I think he probably would have had a few choice words for me.
Right. Okay, so you doubled up that hand. Going into day two, you probably had some momentum. How did day two go?
Day two, I ran hot. I was flopping a lot of sets. At the end of day one, I flopped top set over middle set and won a big pot. And then at the end of day two, I I did the same thing and turned quads, and the guy had middle set, which turned into a boat, and I won a big pot there. So I mean, I ran hot over the tournament, made some big hands. But yeah, again, the one time I was all in for my tournament life on day two was jacks against king jack, blind versus blind, and a king flopped, so I was dead to one out. So after that hit on the river, I was like, hey, you know, maybe I should go ahead and win this if I'm going to be hitting that jack on the river. So.
Nice. Okay, so how were you in chips going into the final table?
Going into the final table, I was second in chips. Jonas Clausen was the chip leader. We had not been at the same table the entire tournament coming into the final table, but I knew that he was good and aggressive, and I'd looked up his online stats, so I had a little bit of an idea how he played. But
where was he to you on the table?
He was in the 2 seat, and I was in the 6 seat.
Okay.
So pretty much straight across.
Now, how did the final table go for you?
There's a couple bumps in the road early. I had a short stack on my left, and I opened a few times, and he went all in, and I was forced to call him, and I lost a couple 40-60s against him, so I chipped down. But then I got a cooler hand where Stephen Bradbury, I believe his name was, raised under the gun like 5 times the big blind, and I was in the big blind with kings. So I went all in, and he called me with queens, and I held up. And so that put me over the 2 million chip mark, and there was about 9 million in play. And from then on, it was pretty smooth sailing, actually. I was able to pick up chips without showdown, make some hands, get some value bets paid off, and then when we got three-handed, it was a good time.
Nice. Well, you said you had a big bluff that you had to sweat. Can we talk about that hand?
Yeah, three-handed. But I had the chip lead at one point three-handed. It was I had like 5 million of the 9 million in play, and each of the other two had about 2, and I turned a flush and got it all in against an overpair with a flush redraw, and Jonas spiked the 7-outer on the river. So like if I'd won that, I would have been a 4-1 chip lead going into heads up. So I had to recover from that real quick, and then so that turned the tables. Jonas had the chip lead, and me and James were in second and third. James raised the small blind, and he'd been doing so often, and I was in the big blind with ace-5 offsuit. I couldn't fold there. He'd been raising a lot. I have an ace. I'm in position. I didn't want to raise because the way the stack sizes were, he could have re-raised all in with a lot of hands, and I don't really like calling off with
Right.
ace-5 there. So I elected to call. It came 9-9-2 rainbow, which is a very, very dry board. He expects me to miss that all the time. So I'm fully expecting a continuation bet. He bet. I decided to call. I didn't want to raise and give him the fold equity to shove over the top of me again with on a bluff or with a like ace-queen type hand. So I called. The turn was a total brick of 4, but it gave me 4 outs to the wheel. And he bet again a little over half the pot, and it just didn't feel like he had a 9. I feel like he might have checked one of the 2 streets with a 9, and also his bet sizing was a little big. So I felt like I could push him off a lot of small pairs and bigger aces. And so I went all in, and he went into the tank for like 10 minutes. It seemed like about 30, and finally laid it down. And we went out with him later, actually, and he swears he had 2 queens. So
wow,
that was a real pivotal hand right there. Gave me the chip lead and some momentum going into the rest of 3-handed play.
how important was that to keep in mind your stack size when pulling a bluff like that? You know, like on the pre-flop and on the flop, you know, you would have opened yourself up to getting rebluffed.
Yeah.
So how important was that?
It's incredibly important. If I re-raise pre-flop with the intention of folding, if he goes all in over the top of me, I might as well be doing it with 5-2 offsuit. Because the only time you're ever getting called with those stack sizes is if he's slow playing a monster, basically. So you're really taking the value out of a decent hand heads up like ace-5. And then like on the flop, not raising him, same thing. You're just like the bet sizing, you plan it out so you're the one that is going to be able to make the all-in bet with the fold equity and possibly get the other player to lay down a better hand.
Wow, that's crazy that he told you later that he had queens. He said he put you on a 9?
He didn't really say what he put me on. I mean, I guess he could put me on 4s, 2s, a 9, or slow played aces or kings there. But I don't know. It was that was a big sweat.
And bluffing for your tournament life to go out in 3rd. That was pretty scary, huh?
That was scary, but those guys, the 2 guys I was heads up with, were tremendous players, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy. So I mean, you can't just sit around and wait to make hands. You gotta make some plays, and I was playing to win, and I mean, just.
So that gave you confidence moving into heads up play?
Yeah, absolutely. We went into heads up about even in chips, and I knew it was going to be a tough battle. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to flop bottom set against Jonas's top 2 pair. I was fully prepared for like a 3 to 5 hour heads up battle, just because nobody was going to give anything away. I was very fortunate to cooler Jonas on a flop, and then he was short, and we basically got it in on. I had 10s and he had ace queen, and my hand held, and that was that.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you much.
What's next for you?
I'm going to play the 10K pot limit hold'em today, and on breaks I'm going to sweat my dad, who is on to day 2 of the seniors event.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, good luck to your dad and good luck to you.
Thank you much.
Christy Arnett with Eric Baldwin for Card Player TV.